Hey. Welcome. Come on in. How are you today? I am MarshaunO, your favorite life and relationship strategist, and I help Christian women that are married or in long-term relationships to stop feeling disconnected and unloved and shift you to feeling heard, understood, and appreciated. Now, thank you so much for coming back to my channel and getting some tips, tools, and strategies in order to make your relationship with yourself better, as well as the relationship that you have with your spouse. Now, I'm sure you clicked on this because you've seen the title and you wanted to hear what I had to say about this topic, which is, did you plan your wedding and did not plan for your marriage? Did you plan your wedding and didn't plan for your marriage? Most people don't. So do not feel alone. You're in your relationship, you're in your marriage, you're struggling, you're frustrated. You may even start to have some resentment build up because there's just these things that you didn't realize were going to come into play. And now you're here listening today because you're like, listen, listen, like that's said enough. Listen, it's because so much pressure is put on setting up the wedding. What is the guest list going to be like? How many people? Where is the venue going to be held? What are the colors going to be? How many grooms and bridesmaids are there going? I say groomsmen and bridesmaids are there going to be? Where will we be at? Where are we going to go afterwards? Never taking the time or the opportunity to put as much time, energy, and effort into how your marriage will be once that one day is over with. Because that one day starts the rest of your life. It is the beginning of your life together. It is not the end. It is where the fairy tale actually begins. It is not where the fairy tale ends. See, in the movies, in the Disney movies, in the rom-coms, the romantic comedies, that's where the fantasy ends, which is on the wedding day. It is on the day that they decide to get back together because there's always some type of friction. They fell apart and then something or someone brought them back together. And then they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. We see them get married. What we never, ever see is their life after that one day of bliss. And that's why I'm coming in here today, because I want you to be prepared for your marriage and not just the wedding day. Because again, wedding day, marriage has no dates on it at all. So please be clear about this particular topic. You can put all the time, energy, and effort into your wedding. I don't care. I mean, really, I'm just being honest. I really don't care. But what I would rather that you did or simultaneously do is to make sure that you are doing the work, that you are asking the questions, that you guys are going to premarital counseling. And even if you need to go to counseling while you're in your marriage. And of course, if you happen to get a divorce, get some counseling afterwards. All of that stuff together is going to help you to build a great marriage. Of course, not the ones after that I just mentioned, but all of the things that I just mentioned prior to that is going to help you to solidify as well as create a beautiful, blissful marriage after the wedding. So now I'm gonna give you 10 things so you can start the conversation. This is just to get you started. I am not here to help you step by step. This is what you should ask. However, I do want you to get you started in the right way. But here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, if you're already married, you can still ask these questions in order to have a better relationship, in order to bring back some of that intimacy that has probably fall by the wayside, as well as stop feeling resentful, as well as frustrated with your spouse. So the first question that you want to ask yourself in order to prepare for the marriage and not just the wedding day is to, besides love, what is your main reason for marrying your partner? Like, what are they bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the table? What is your main reason other than loving this person that you must say, I do? When you answer that question, you will get a better understanding, of course, why you're saying I do instead of when somebody asks you, well, why are you marrying this person? You can actually say this, and that, other than I love them. Because after a while, love doesn't keep the lights on. Love doesn't do a lot of things. It is great to have, but please, 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 please have realistic expectations that your relationship and your feelings are going to go like this. It's going to be a roller coaster at times. It's going to ebb and flow with how you're feeling about your spouse, as well as how you're feeling about the relationship, how you're feeling about the marriage. It's going to kind of go up and down because you should be growing. Your partner ideally should be growing with you. However, sometimes, and I stopped it, because sometimes one partner is growing and the other person is resistant, or is just not growing as fast. So there's that frustration that's going to come in. You guys are not always going to see eye to eye, no matter how much love you have for your spouse. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be friction. There's going to be things that are going to come into your marriage, that are going to come into your life that you had no idea was going to be a part of your marriage after you get married. So think about why you love this. Besides love, why you're saying I do to your partner. The second question that I want you to ask yourself is, what does the word compromise mean to you? And how will you apply this in your marriage? See, most people think that compromising, when they think of the word compromising, they think that they actually are giving up something permanently. That's actually a sacrifice. That's not compromise. Compromise is being able to give it up for the moment, but you still get it at a later time. So say, for instance, I have clients. I'm sure that you've heard this story before, because I had a client. She was she was basically like, I don't want to go to the movies. Like, I actually would rather sit in the house and watch the movie. And so I basically brought it to her attention, like, why can't you do both? And she thought that she was actually compromising by letting her boyfriend, always have his way and they leave the house. But that's not a compromise. It's actually a sacrifice. So he likes going to the theater. She likes being at home. So what I suggested to her to bring to her relationship as a conversation is a real compromise, which is, how about you go to the theater today, but then you have the conversation with your boyfriend that the next time, or even later that night, that you guys can watch a movie at the house. So that way he got what he wanted, which is the theater experience, and you got what you wanted, which is the home experience, but you're still together. So I know that that's a small thing, but it is a thing. It's going to be things that are always going to come up where you have to compromise in order for both of you to feel like you're getting what you need out of the relationship. So you're not sacrificing, which is what most people think that they're doing, but they're inserting the word compromise here. That is not a compromise. When you never get your thing, that's a sacrifice. So now that you understand what the real definition of compromise actually is, how will you apply this into your own marriage? Have that conversation, because people think that they're compromising when they're actually sacrificing. And it could be you, but also your spouse could be thinking the exact same way that you're currently thinking about the word compromise as well. So really have the talk and how you guys are going to plan that thing out. And no, it's not always going to be perfect, but if you talk about a lot of these things prior to it happening, or just reminding your spouse once something pops off and occurs, then you can always have a much clearer relationship, as well as a much clearer picture, by just having the conversation prior to, because now your radar is up and you're attuned to what's actually going on and be able to clearly see it once it happens. So that's question number 2. Number 3, where would you like to live eventually? Is it on the beach? Is it in the city? Is it the suburbs? Or is it in another country? Like, where would you want to live? What is your spouse's idea of where he or she wants to live? Because some people don't want to leave their city, and for others that is a deal breaker. So you really want to know where their plans are in living. Or if you don't care about that, then that's fine, but still have the conversation, because it could be a city, state, or country that you're like, no. Like, it's all the way no. Like, not even years later, it's just an all the way no. That's not up your alley. It's not up your picture. And so that could be a deal breaker for you, or even for your spouse. But you want to have those clear conversations about, where do we want to live today, in a year, In 5 years, in 10 years, where are we trying to live? Now, again, your plans might not always unfold the way that you want them to, but if you have a clear picture about what it is that you want and be able to articulate that thing to your spouse, then you can say, okay, we had that conversation. Remember what we did? We even penned it out, meaning you put pen to paper about what it is your plans are going to be and how you're actually going to get there. Number 4. How do you prefer to spend your free time? People don't understand how important it is for you to, and what you want to do later on when you have some free time. Because some people, some spouses, I've had several clients to come to me and say, my spouse wants me to spend every waking moment that I have free. And they're feeling like they're suffocating. That might not seem like a big thing, but when you're in it, it is a huge thing. I literally have a client where, and I wish this wasn't true, but it totally is, which is she can't even go to the bathroom and take a bath without her husband feeling like he needs to be in the room with her. He wants to be in her space every waking moment, and she feels suffocated. She's kind of used to it now that they've been together, but when she's really irritated, she doesn't want to see his face, but he's always there. So her free time is really not her own because he suffocates her, because he feels like he must be there. Does that sound like something that you want to deal with? Again, it might sound like, oh my God, I want somebody to want to be in my space all the time like that. But when it's actually happening, it's a different story. It can be overwhelming. It can feel like you are suffocating because your free time is not time for you to recharge, relax, think, because that person is always there in your space and even in your head. You never get any time to decompress from the things that were occurring. If it was a fight, if it was something that you just want to think about, you never have that time to do it because he or she is always there in your presence. So really think about that question. Number 5, how will you resolve disputes? This is important because disputes, conflicts absolutely are always going to happen. So now, are you a person that shuts down? You need to work on that because that's not healthy. Again, shutting down could be in the form of silent treatment. That's not healthy. That's actually a form of emotional abuse as well as control. So if you're a person that starts to give the silent treatment, you need to figure out why you're doing that, but then also how to stop doing that because you are killing and destroying your relationship. How are you handling disputes? Are you guys yelling at each other, fussing at each other, physically harming one another? Are you going to say, you know what? I need to leave for a few moments and go take a walk around the block or go take a long drive, think for a moment, because that's really what it's all about. It's you taking and removing yourself from that situation so you can actually find time to settle down and think about the situation. Think about what you want to say, how you want to respond, whether or not he or she responds in kind. You have to take back your own power and be able to control yourself, control your tongue, because you can only control you. Your spouse or partner can only control him or herself. But think about you. Think about how you want to show up and your integrity and your authenticity. You don't want to feel like you're able to be swayed one way or the other because of what he or she is actually doing, what they're saying in the moment. You have to protect your peace. So how will you handle disputes? Number 6, do you know what each other's love language is? Do you have any idea what the love language is? Because if you do, then you have a better understanding of how you need to show up and show your spouse that you love him or her. How are you showing up? What is their love language? Could you rattle it off? Could you actually type it down in the comment section below and let me know what your partner's love language is? Could he or she actually do the same thing? I'm talking about right now. If I was to go to your spouse and say, hey, what is his love language? Could you rattle off what they were? Or would you have to say, well, first of all, what is love language? Number 2, No, I don't know because we never had this conversation. Well, this is how you are preparing for the marriage and not just the wedding day. Having these conversations, getting to know. This is what all of this is. See, we talk about how we need to get to know our spouse before we actually say I do, but we don't really get the instructions on what that really means. This is what this video is. These are some of the instructions. These are some of the conversations that you can have. Again, these are starter conversations. I'm not here to tell you all of the conversations that you need and must have, but this is a start of the conversation so you can get a deeper understanding of where you need to go, what you need to say, what you're expecting once you get into your marriage. Number 7, what if your love languages do not match up? Is that a deal breaker for you? Really think about that. Is that a deal breaker for you? Because luckily enough for me and my husband, our the top 2 actually match up, which is quality time and no, not physical touch. What's this? Quality time. No, I'm sorry. It's the top 1, which is quality time. Sorry. The next 2 actually are different. Anyway, the point is, okay, do you know what they are? Can you rattle them off? You see? Because some people don't want you to be in their space all the time, right? Which is the quality time. But quality time can be overkill. Like I mentioned in the example earlier. The spouse, literally, she can't even go take a bath. He has to be in the room with her. Like, that's way too much for me. Like, she even says it's way too much for her, but she's still married. That's a different story. But also, she did not realize because this was not a conversation that she had prior to. And don't get me wrong, some conversations you're not even going to realize that you should have had them prior to. But what you're trying to do is gather enough information so you can make an informed decision about you being with this person. Day in, day out, building your life together. Right? So make sure you have an understanding of where he or she actually is. So do your love languages match up? And if they don't, is it a deal breaker for you? Number 8, do you have a community around you when the hard times arise? Because hard times are going to arise. Things that you had no clue about are going to show up in your marriage that you had no clue about. Some conversations like we're talking about that you're not thinking about having are going to come up later on and you're going to be like, holy crap. I wish I would have known to ask that question. Well, here's the thing. Some questions you're not going to be able to know to ask beforehand. You're going to get into the marriage, you're going to get into a relationship, and they're going to irk the hell out of you. It happens. It happens to each and every one of us. It happens to those who have the best of marriages. But you have to find a way to go back to the why you fell in love with this person, why you said I do in the first place, besides I love you. Man, I love him. What does that actually mean? What does that look like? Can you quantify that? Can you actually write down a list of things that he does for you to say, I love you? Can you? I'd like to see a list, a short list down in the comment section below. If you can rattle them off at the time of watching this video, can you rattle off a list of 5 things why you said I do to your partner? Like right now, like not going to think about them, just rattling them off. Curious. Number 9, is your partner open to counseling? Because this is a big one. There are going to be things that are going to happen in your relationship, that are going to happen in your marriage. I literally was talking to a client the other day, and she was saying after 20 years of marriage, so let me back up. Some of the conversations that she didn't realize that she should have had because they were really young is that her husband was a mama's boy, and she didn't realize what that actually meant and how deep those ties are and how usually the wife never gets the number 1 place when you're dealing with the mama's boy. Now, fast forward to today, 20 plus years later, they are now just separating because mama's boy never could put his mama in her place and make her second or third fiddle versus putting his wife as number one and the children as number two, and then the mama is number three or somewhere down the line. Because what the Bible actually tells you is to leave your mother and father and cleave to your spouse. Your spouse is now that wife or husband. It is not your mama. It is not your daddy, and even not your children. Okay, that's a different story, and some people are not going to agree with me. I totally accept that, but it's God, husband, wife, children. That is the order. That's the order that I like to follow. That is the order that we have in my household as well. So here's the thing. If they're not open to counseling, you might have a rocky road ahead of you. Think about, did you guys do premarital counseling, which is a great sign. But if you can ask a deeper question, is he or she open to counseling if something pops off? Because here's the thing, it is going to pop off in your relationship. But is there an outsider that you could go and talk to? It doesn't have to be a therapist. It doesn't have to be a coach. It could be somebody trusted, somebody that you can actually go and have an adult conversation with as a third party who is neutral to say, hey, this is what's actually happening in our marriage. How can we get past this? How can we work past this thing? Because I love him. He loves me. We want to actually stay together, but we have no idea how to get past this thing. And this thing is actually ruining our happy home. It's ruining our relationship. It's breaking down our foundation. Please help us out. And then he or she that you're speaking to should be able to give you some very, very clear instructions, or at least pose some situations to you. Because here's the thing, when you're actually in the friction, when you're there in it, you have no idea how to get out of it. And you cannot usually see the thing that is actually bringing you down, or a very simple solution on how to solve that thing. It's usually somebody on outside, because when you're in it, you usually cannot see the actual problem, the actual solution to the problem. Number 10, what happens if one or both of you lose your income or become disabled? Especially in times like right now, lots of people have lost their income. That's going to put a really tough strain on your marriage. But can you make it through? You can. You can. So a plan, something that you could do, is to actually just have a savings account, right? And you guys are pouring. It doesn't even have to be a whole bunch of money, but it needs to be something religiously every paycheck, just putting something in there, and just allow that to build up, because emergencies are going to happen, and you're just allowing that to build up, Have to be religious about it. Religious in a way where you don't even realize it's being taken out until you need it. Like somebody losing their income, or maybe even both of you losing your income, or somebody becoming disabled, or having a chronic illness that you had no idea that it was sitting somewhere in your body and now it's coming out. How are you going to handle said situations? I want you to be prepared when you get into your marriage. And again, if you're watching this and you're a person who are married, you can still ask these questions, because all of this is going to help you to gain clarity, have a better understanding of the person that you're lying next to, as well as feel like you actually chose the right person to build your life with. I love you guys. There's nothing that you can do about it. I am MarshaunO, your favorite life and relationship strategist, and I help Christian women that are married or in long-term relationships to stop feeling disconnected and unloved, and shift you to feeling heard, understood, and appreciated. Because my mission, here's my mission, and I want you to join with me in my mission, is to decrease the divorce rate while simultaneously increasing the marriage rate. Because each and every one of us doing one thing daily to improve your marriage, to improve your relationship, can actually decrease the divorce rate. It's everything that we do every single day and how we're showing up. And you have to take the responsibility of how you're showing up as well. I love you guys. Thank you so much. I will see you very, very soon. Bye.